Hello, guys, and welcome to RiceCast. Today, we're going to be talking about taking creative liberties in translation. So, the first thing that I would like to ask you guys is when is it okay for a translator to make changes to the script? The example that I was going to think of was the Crunchyroll subs. That I think Naren brought this up the other day. There was a Kaguya-sama
Yeah,
episode.
this is the topic that kind of triggered why I wanted to have the episode today. Basically, what it was they changed what would probably have been a line that was like, "Why are you standing so far away?" to "What's with this social distancing amidst like COVID-19 times?" So, what do you guys think about like this change? Do you think it was a good change, or do you think they shouldn't have done that?
I personally, I think it kind of breaks the immersion. I because you're suddenly admitting within the very text, you're breaking away from you're breaking the third wall or fourth wall, whatever it's called, to some extent, and I think that takes away from the show.
I think I agree with Angus. It's kind of, it just sounds weird if the translator is like putting his own experiences and stuff into the translation, and it's not actually accurate.
I mean, even without Corona, then social distancing as a term still kind of makes sense, even if the viewer had no idea what Corona is and they're watching this 10 years in the future.
Yeah, but the thing is, the viewers at the moment know what Corona is. We can be pretty certain that anyone that watches it now is going to know what it is, right? They're going to know what the term is. And beyond anything else, I just don't think it's a particularly good, joke. You
not a good
don't
joke.
watch anime because you want to be reminded of COVID, do you?
I mean, I thought it was funny personally.
I mean, it's funny, but also, I don't know, I can see two sides to the story, like what you guys are arguing, and I personally don't really have a preference. I wouldn't really care because I don't really focus that hard on the subs. It's just kind of what I understand from it and the meaning of the words that they say anyway. So subs don't really matter to me anyway because they capture the gist of what people are trying to say.
Gabby's just too big brain.
So even in that sense, I don't know why people got so pissed off.
She watches Raw.
No, I don't know why people got so pissed off about no, I can't watch Raws. I'll not understand anything. I'll understand 2 words.
Bro, she pretends to be able to follow, but actually she can't.
I can't even follow with subtitles. Are you kidding me?
But you're just you don't care about subs. Yes.
No, but I mean it's not that I don't care about subs, but it's I don't understand why everyone made such a huge deal about it. It's you understood what the point, you understood what they said anyway. Why does it make a big deal how they delivered it? Why is it a big deal how they delivered it to you, or if they put a joke in there
Because the joke isn't funny, and the translator's just ruining the author's work by putting in his own stuff.
Are they ruining the author's work though?
Yes.
Because there's a ton of people working on Kaguya-sama itself, and they're not, and all of them are putting their own influences into it,
on it.
that don't align 100% with the author's work.
Yeah, but
Also,
the director allow it though?
Well, does it matter whether the director
think-
allowed it?
Yeah, I think more of the point is the fact that this has potential. This is a lot more impactful and a lot more noticeable, is the major point here.
Well,
It generally divulges from what would be considered normal creative liberties.
okay, what's considered normal creative liberties?
Changing scenes because of the way... normal creative liberties are simply changing scenes to make them fit more into an anime format. This is changing a word to make it more fit into the global sphere. Yeah, it's completely...
a political kind of what's going on.
Yeah, it's not even... It has no relation to the actual manga. Or it's just... It's complete jumping out. Yeah.
I don't even see it that way. I thought it enhanced what would have just been a very stale delivery of a punchline, and it added a spin to it. you know.
Wait, what was
I
what
mean,
was even the
I
joke
haven't
in
seen
there?
the episode, so I can't exactly say like much about it. But
Yeah. Well, it's okay. It's everyone's. It's your own fault for watching that anime. Just read the
Why not
manga.
do both?
The anime's better.
That's not true, but
Very funny.
why
It's
not do
true.
both?
Yeah.
If the anime is
It's okay,
better
it's a bit
out of what was
naive.
adapted. I mean, obviously the
naive.
stuff past the anime is the best part, but
What about like how they translate like the sans and like the senpais and the chans and the like, you know? Do you
oh, I
prefer like
hate
they
it when
just
I hate it when somebody calls another character like some nickname of their name and then adds the chan. I forgot what they're called. Honorific to the
yeah,
end.
honorific.
And then in the subtitle, they just change it to like some random nickname that was like never said ever, and they just decide, yeah, so we're just gonna give this character another nickname.
Like sometimes they put Mr. as san, you know,
yeah.
and it's
I
Or
mean,
they'll-
it
they'll
makes
put-
sense.
it's kind of weird though, isn't it?
Or they'll change Sensei
It's a
to
bit
Mister.
weird, yeah, I guess, but like,
What are you watching?
It's
I don't
like
know, I don't remember. It's just
you know,
what-
some subtitle groups will do that and like value the audience that they're watching, that they're making it for more, since like san doesn't really make sense to the average non-Japanese watcher, right? But then, you know, personally, I'd rather they keep in the honorifics and
Yeah.
the nicknames that would make sense in Japanese, since I'm used to it by now. Also, the stuff with like itadakimasu, they always have different ways to say it, to subtitle it, and it's kind of annoying at this point.
well, I mean,
So you'd
like, there's
prefer they be like
there's
a-
no actual way to translate a lot of things, like.
But I think with the things that they can't translate, they should just, or the common ones, they should just keep them in Japanese.
Semester walls.
Yeah. Or at least I think that's when I feel like it's suitable to use those little like translator notes things, especially in manga. Like I think it's okay to use translator notes when you're talking about things that like are Japanese phrases that can't exactly be translated to English, but it's not okay when you do that thing where it's like, oh, nakama means comrade and like you can't change it to English in any way because there's no
Why?
equivalent.
Yeah.
Like yes there is, just call him a friend or something. I don't know.
I disagree with that. One Piece, what I watched of One Piece was like way better with Nakama than
All
Like
according to
friend.
Keikaku.
dude, the subtitles I was using was so funny. It was like at the beginning of one episode, they just decided to have the splash screen that was just a 6-paragraph essay of what Nakama means and why they don't want to translate it, and it was pretty good. I'd rather they keep in, because basically what their main argument was that Nakama as a word is so ingrained with One Piece's identity that they don't want to translate that word since it like benefits the perception of the show, you know, which I agree with.
Why? Why don't they just change the word to like comrade and then say comrade is
Because
part
comrade
of
sounds
the
a little
thing, sure.
communist, and that's just a bit weird.
does
Doesn't that feel weird to you? Wouldn't it feel weird? Like,
What about like companion or
Because
something?
comrade and companion
what I feel
don't
like is
really
that there's
meet
just so
the
many
nuance
different
of
words in
Nakama.
English that you can use depending on the context that, like, I don't understand why you feel a need to put a translator's note there. Like, for One Piece, I can't say, obviously, but I've seen things like, I just finished K. They use clansmen. When I watched Naruto when I was a kid, and then also the Netflix sub of Naruto, I don't agree with this, but the Netflix sub of Naruto uses comrade, and I hate that word so much.
So you hate that they don't want to translate Nakama, but you hate the word that they would most likely translate it to.
But you can change. There's many words for Nakama, dude.
Yeah, but I feel like Nakama is a combination of all the possible words. You know, it can't be summarized, or at least the One Piece fan subs are arguing that it can't be summarized into just one word as effectively.
But
I
what does
mean-
Nakama mean?
I don't know, man.
It's just like
kind of
a-
complicated.
It's like a person who like it's like a friend, but like also not really like. Obviously, like I agree that there's no way for translators to completely translate it into English, but at the same time, I feel like there are plenty of other suitable words that you can use, like instead of an exact translation. It's just you need to learn how to be better with your words.
So then, would you say if they were to find a suitable word that it didn't match Nakama, but then it still had some complexity to the word, then that would be fine?
Yeah, but obviously a suitable word would be different in every situation because the same thing as how Nakama is applied differently in different situations. Like, the way that it's applied in Naruto is not the same way that it's applied in Haikyuu and the same way that it's applied in K. They're all like 3 different contexts, so you could obviously use 3 different English words to translate that.
Yeah, for
so that's
sure.
why I just don't agree that you should put that word in like a translator's note.
Well, I think thanks to One Piece, it's just that everybody knows what Nakama is now, even if they haven't seen One Piece.
Yeah, on the topic of like footnotes and stuff, I like it when subgroups just give the original Japanese translation and then add footnotes to like explain what it means and stuff like that. It's really common in Gintama.
Wasn't that what Gabby was saying she doesn't like?
It depends on the
Yeah, it
word.
depends on the
Sometimes there are
context, I
things
think.
where it's okay.
If it's just one
Like,
word,
if you
like
put-
you don't need to.
I think if you put like that meme, if you put plan in a translator's note, that's just stupid. But if you put like other things,
Like cultural
Yeah, like-
references or like
yeah.
mostly
See, well,
references.
with Keikaku
Speaking
means
about
plan.
cultural references-
With Keikaku means plan, I think it's the fault of the idiot who subtitled that. And they couldn't make a choice between do they want to explain what Keikaku means in the translator notes? Because if it means more than just plan, if it means more than just plan, then I think by all means, then fine, you can put a translator's note and meaning the nuance of that statement. But if it just means plan, then you should just make it plan. And then they thought
exactly.
they thought it meant more, but it didn't, and it showed that they didn't.
If we're talking about cultural references as well, like there are sometimes characters make like Japanese pop culture, Japanese history references. Like the immediate example that I can think of because I just finished this was Bakuno. So in the sub, when Miria and Isaac are talking about strong women, the woman who Miria references is Tomoe Gozen, who's a
Who is an
she's a
FGO
historical
servant.
Japanese samurai, but who probably only me and Rohan will know because of Fate and history books.
She's
But,
a gamer girl.
Why is this American knowing about this random Japanese samurai?
Why won't you let
Yeah,
me
why
be
don't you know-
Asian for 2 seconds?
Why don't you know, Nara? 'Cause
Please.
You don't play FGO, you pleb.
Because
Naren,
samurai were
stop bullying
useless.
me.
And
Because
there's
Americans shouldn't do that. They did a similar thing in
Let
the
me
dub.
be Asian for 2
In
seconds.
the dub,
Oh my god.
in the dub they changed it to like American references.
Did they change it to Amelia Earhart in the
Michelle
dub? So
Obama.
okay, finishing my point, I think that was a pretty clever or like a good thing to do because I feel like a lot of the not power but like that line would have really been lost on an English speaking audience if they hadn't replaced Tomoe Gozen with Amelia Earhart.
I think that's why the
in
audience
the
needs to
sub,
be
did they do a
educated.
translator's note?
No, there was no translator's note in the sub, but that's also probably because, like, at the same time, I feel like with pop culture references, sometimes translator notes, like, aren't necessary because people could
It's
just
like,
Google them.
you only
know
know
what I mean?
you
Like,
only know when you get it.
But who the hell is Amelia Earhart? Like, who's gonna know that either way?
Do you not know who Amelia Earhart is?
Everyone knows who Amelia Earhart
No,
is.
no
Bro.
clue. I'm not American.
In my second grade wax museum, like, half the girls in my class came as Amelia Earhart, and the other half wanted to be Pocahontas.
Who?
In like third
No.
grade, my sister had a whole unit in school about Amelia Earhart.
As a country that doesn't care about things that don't matter, I didn't have to worry
Same.
about that. Whoever
She
this
does
is.
matter, though.
Why?
Yes, what did she
To
do?
who?
She was a famous pilot. I think, she was one of the first female pilots, but then she crashed and her plane was lost and her body was never found.
So basically,
Sounds like American propaganda.
No, she had like this whole achievement, right?
I don't really remember like the specifics of it, but she was just like famous for being a female pilot.
Yeah, I prefer Ram Earhart anyways.
see, yeah, in primary school, we're taught about the people that go out to remote communities in planes and do that instead. Real life people.
Amelia
Anyhow, yeah,
Earhart.
sorry.
Amelia Earhart was a real life person.
Yeah, but she doesn't matter. Anyhow, let's
Yeah,
keep
I think that I think that American audiences should be educated in like the culture, like different cultures basically. Like if they don't know about Tomoe Gozen, they should just Google it, and it'll actually benefit
But
them.
honestly,
instead of
just for watching
knowing it.
ease, and also I feel like kind of the dub also makes sense because like when I first watched the sub, I watched the sub before I watched the dub, and when I heard Miria talk about Tomoe Gozen, I was like, what? Like, how would Miria know? Because it's like, it's the 1930s. She lives in America.
Yeah, information doesn't spread like that.
Yeah, or at least like Miria absolutely does not seem like the kind of person who would be reading a book on Japanese
What?
history on or on
They
like
became immortal? No way. That can't happen in real life. 1930 America.
Yeah, no, but I meant like I feel like it made more sense for in the dub version for Tomoe Gozen to be replaced with Amelia Earhart, and I can't really think of like other examples of like pop culture references that were changed in dubs
Oh,
versus
Gabby,
subs
do you
or like in
remember?
subtitles.
Do you remember the scene where Lad Russo is beating up the guys on the train? Oh wait, never mind.
beats up a lot of
That-
guys on
that
the
was
train in a
that
few
was the
scenes,
whole
yeah.
thing with Lad Russo.
Yes, what
Uh,
about it?
I don't remember what they did in the sub, but in the dub that they do make pop culture references to like American boxers, because he's boxing them and talking about like style.
Oh
of
yeah, no,
boxers.
I remember that. In the sub, no, in the dub, it's exactly the same as it is in the sub. So in
Oh.
the sub, Lad Russo also references American boxers, but then for some reason Miria references a Japanese samurai. So I was like,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was carried over from the sub or not.
Oh, if we're talking about like subs as well, subs and dubs and stuff, the Yuri on Ice dub is better than the Yuri on Ice sub. Just saying, just putting it out there. Like,
Why?
I rarely agree that dubs are better than subs, but in this case, Yuri on Ice dub was definitely much better than the sub because, like, firstly, canonically, it doesn't really make sense because they communicate in English, and that's been confirmed by the writer. And then it makes more sense because in the sub, Victor speaks perfect Japanese with no accent, so it's a bit like weird, I guess, to hear.
But
And then
in
there's
the
also,
dub
like,
in the dub does his name is Yuri, right? In the dub does he
What?
speak perfect English with no Japanese accent?
That's another problem that in the dub Yuri speaks perfect English. So that's like nothing makes sense. But also okay, then there's another thing. The one thing that like kind of not pissed me off, but like threw me off a little bit is like they have a conversation in one of like I think it's the first or second episode. Yuri and Victor have a conversation, and Victor asks him, do you have any lovers? So that's like the word that he uses is koibito, which is like a lover, like non-gender specific. But then in the sub, it's subbed as do you have a girlfriend? And then in the dub, it's dubbed back as do you have any lovers? So it's like, I don't know. That's just a thing
might
to
just
me
be
because
a
like
sub
if it's
thing.
gonna be about LGBT people, or if it's like gonna be an LGBT inclusive anime, like they should, I don't know, maybe consider like how they do that sub.
I don't know. I think that there's a point to which maybe they thought that saying "Do you have a girlfriend?" would be able to more of a way of showing that he had no clue that he might have feelings towards the other gender.
No, but the thing is that in Japanese he doesn't ask in the actual line. He specifically uses a non-gender specific term because he could have
So
used
the
like
subtitle
kanjo
could have said, "Do you have
or
a partner?" or
kareshi,
something
but
like
he
that.
uses
Yeah. But that's just like the issue with the sub, right? Not right. Like you
Yeah,
don't
that's
you
just
don't
an
you
issue
don't
with the sub, but I
translate
find that-
koibito to
in one
girlfriend.
case I find that like in that case it's just I don't know, it makes that's one case where, because usually I feel like the subs translate the actual talking, like the actual speech in Japanese better than the dubs, but this is one case where I felt like the dubs actually translated it better than the subs.
Yeah, but it's not like the property of dubs where it can translate better. It's just the subs isn't good.
Imagine if dubs of like Japanese high school anime, just English dubs of Japanese high school anime, just had everybody speak in a racist Japanese accent.
I'll watch that.
Like in Breakfast at Tiffany's. There's a clip from Breakfast at Tiffany's where it's a movie from the 60s. It's an American movie, but I'm trying to recall the scene. Oh yeah, so I don't remember. No, it's Holly. Holly is the character's name. So Holly's landlord is Japanese, but he also speaks in like a really thick Chinese, like a racist rendition of a Chinese accent for some reason.
Okay.
And there's this scene where like there's a party in Holly's building, and I don't exactly remember what happened, but she was like, "Oh, let's go up and see the Japanese garden." And like I think they intended for this to be a joke, and I thought it was so funny, but my mom was like, "That's not funny at all." And it was just like Japanese people standing in pots. I don't know what I'm talking. This is more funny if you see it. Like let me send you a picture. This is really funny.
There's a fan edit of the Psycho-Pass movie where they edit in the American characters speaking in English in the dub and put it into the Japanese sub version. So the American characters are actually speaking English, and it's supposed to be like really cool and seamless. So it'd be nice if I saw more stuff like that. I just want American characters in anime to speak in actual English and not just bad Japanese renditions of English.
Sometimes they like
Yeah,
they have like
that's
Japanese
what.
subtitles, right? And they speak in
Yeah, but it's always
like in
really
Free.
clearly not.
It was
In Free,
and
that
it
like
hurts.
Isaac almost quit when Rin went to Australia and he started speaking English. Isaac was like, "This is it. I'm done. I'm not watching anymore."
Wait, didn't the like the actual Australians speak English though? Like the
They did. Yeah, they spoke proper English, but like Rin's English was really weird because it was done by his voice
Yeah,
actor.
yeah.
And I was thinking like if you spend like all of middle school and all of high school in Australia, you must have at least picked up some English.
Japanese people aren't good at English. That's just
Wow,
Oh, it
wrong.
is.
That's a pretty big generalization.
it's not really. They just aren't that good at English.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't find
Like,
that photo,
in
but like
anime,
if you ever
it's
watch
really
Breakfast
clear.
at Tiffany's, it's really funny. I promise you.
In anime, it's really clear when like they clearly have no idea what they're actually saying in English or French. They're just reading the katakana.
I think it's because like it's so similar to the kataganas, right? They always try to say it
Yeah.
as kataganas, which makes them sound like super Japanese, and it just doesn't sound
Yeah.
like English.
No, but there is one joke that. Oh, there is a joke that's funny in English and in Japanese. Like, even if you don't understand any Japanese, you'll probably still find it funny. And it's, in a way, kind of a jab at the way that English, or the Japanese voice actors pronounce English words. It's in Haikyuu when Tanaka meets the guys from Nekoma and he's calling them city boy, but because the katakana is like... The katakana, the C in city is replaced by an SHI, so it becomes shitty boy. It's really funny. I feel like when you explain jokes, it's just not as funny anymore, but it was funny.
Yeah,
Just like how I promised you that scene in Breakfast at Tiffany's was hilarious. Like, it's racist, but I thought it was really funny.
I would have found it funny
That's
too,
a quote and a
probably.
half.
Right, guys, what are your thoughts on dubs?
bad.
We just talked about that,
Yeah,
didn't we?
bad.
Yeah, but we didn't.
I think we've all got an agreement that unless there's a special exception, they're bad. I think there's exceptions, and I think there's times where dubs, like in cases like Cowboy Bebop, because of the background they're in, dubs can make sense and they can work well. But I think especially when you're basing off anime which are based in Japan or Korea or other countries that aren't
English-speaking
English
countries.
speaking, often I prefer the sub simply because you kind of lose your immersion when you see people that look kind of Japanese speaking English, or you see the failures with mouth expressions, and as such, you just lose your immersion.
I don't
Oh yeah,
think
the mouth expressions thing really pisses me off sometimes. Like especially when you watch like Chinese and Taiwanese dramas and they've been dubbed from like Cantonese into Mandarin, and it's like,
Sometimes it's just
but
Mandarin to
your
Mandarin. It's
mouth
still
is
dubbed.
like. I know, but I hate that, especially
Yeah.
in like Chinese dramas.
Yeah, it's so weird. I can't watch.
It bothers
Chinese
me so
dramas.
much.
Same.
It shouldn't even bother me
these
that
are
much.
live. These
but, like,
are
it
live
bothers
action,
me.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, live action.
Is
Live
that-
action is
yeah,
worse
yeah.
than
Dubs
animated.
on dubs on live action are just awful. They're never. They're
I also
never
think
good.
especially because often when you've got an anime, they spend a lot of time finding the original voice actors, and often the dub voice actors just don't fit the roles as well, because it's just a very weird thing to search for, and as such you get people that just sound really weird. They often have a fucking obnoxious American accents. Like the most obnoxious American accent you've ever heard. It's incredible how annoying they are.
Like in the Haikyuu dub, Oikawa sounds like a cowboy.
On that note, I'm going.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay,
With
see you later,
regard-
Angus.
With regards to like immersion, I don't fully agree because I think, like for example, I was watching Kekai Sensen dub recently,
Is
and
this
even though it
responding
has
to
like
Angus's argument?
yeah.
Oh, but he's gone, so.
Yeah, but I can just, all the more reason to say it because now we can't counter
Yeah,
argument.
nice. How to win the argument?
See, now Naren can start talking about Kekai Sensei because no one's gonna come back at him for it.
Hey, you have the ability to now.
That's true. I haven't seen the dub though.
Oh, that's okay. I was just gonna say, even though the dub has like strong voice actors who have done good roles and a good studio, and it has the added benefit of being like in New York, so they would speak English.
Do they have New
I
York
think the
accents, though?
Japanese, they have somewhat New York accents, but I don't really have a good idea of what New York accents are, so it doesn't matter that much to me.
What are
But-
they?
To be honest, most like young people in New York just sound like regular East Coast people. Like they don't have that weird,
Yeah.
exaggerated New York accent that you see all the time.
The one that you see in like Baccano.
Yeah. I mean, Baccano is pretty well done though because I think it fit like the characters.
And it fit the style. I was gonna say, even though Kekai has those benefits, the voice acting in the sub is just so much better. It's so great in the sub that I would still never recommend anyone watch the dub, even though it has even though the English makes sense.
I think there's like a lot of Gintama cast in there.
In the sub,
Yeah, no, in the Kekai Sensen cast.
Zoro plays Zap, and Zoro's voice actor is really good. Also, the main
is Zap the bad guy?
character- Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's also in Gintama.
Oh, I
and
really
stuff.
want to. Naren and I have both agreed that we really want to see a Banana Fish dub, but I don't think it wasn't popular enough to
Do
ever
we agree with that
get
though?
a dub.
I agree with that.
I haven't
I would
watched
not
it.
say-
so
I was
don't-
thinking
I'm
while
not
it was
saying now,
airing that
but, like-
I'd really rather watch this dubbed.
I
Kinda
mean, I'm not
cringe.
saying now that like the dub will be better than the sub because it could end up like Kekai Sensen where there were some better performances. But to be honest, I feel like the characters in Banana Fish are not like the characters in Kekai Sensen in that they have very specific voices that need to be like a certain person to fit the role. Like a dub would be relatively easier than Kekai Sensen to cast for Banana Fish, I feel like.
I agree with that. Kekai Sensen has very like individualistic characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, on my point, I think great voice acting kind of trumps the world building in terms of immersion with voice actors. So I think if
But
the
how
voice
much-
acting is exceptional enough, then I would be fine seeing Japanese, and if they match the lip flaps well and stuff, I'm fine seeing Japanese characters in Japan be played by English voice actors in a dub. For example, Steins Gate has pretty good dub.
Another thing that you could bring up
What?
is like
Nice.
how people how people who translators take liberties with how they decide to translate the language or like the language use of certain characters, like or the vocabulary that they use. Like for example, in Kekai Sensen, you have Zap, who doesn't actually, because in Japanese there aren't the same swear words that there are in English, and usually you just call everything like kuso this or kuso that, and then but like based on the tone of voice that Zap uses, the translators decide to add English swears into the subtitles, and I think personally that's an acceptable decision to me. Like I feel like it kind of helps to communicate what he's saying, but and then how like tone of voice, because of how there aren't as many swears in Japanese as there are in English, tone of voice kind of is important to communicate your point. But then also, like on the other side of the argument, you can obviously tell the kind of tone of voice he's using. Like you don't need to be able to speak Japanese to know that he's not very happy.
Yeah, emotion is like universal, even if the words aren't, you know. I think that's the biggest thing with translation, is that it's not really trying to translate. A lot of people just kind of think it's just translating word by word and then changing it to make grammatical sense. But really, it's more important to transfer the meaning, which is why like liberties like that are good, and why liberties like social distancing and Kaguya-sama are a bit more like gray area, since a lot of people will say that they're changing the meaning, even though personally I disagree.
So, what dubs did you like better than subs, Naren?
There's a lot of dubs that I think are like equal ground as a sub, like Steins Gate or Gurren Lagann, or other things.
Baccano?
With Gurren Lagann, it really has the advantage of being super cartoony, so dubs really work for that show.
I hate the dubs of sports anime. Like, I hate them so, like with a burning passion.
Is there an inherently bad thing about sports anime just never getting good dubs?
Okay, so I think there's a few things. So obviously, okay, Yuri on Ice is an exception to this because I love that dub, even though it's a sports anime. But I think one of the first things that they do is that they get voice actors who are super over the top, like hilariously, ridiculously over the top. And, like, I forgot, you said it, I think, Naren, but they have these obnoxious American accents that are like things you would not even hear in America. And it's like they pick the most exaggerated of these people and they cast them in sports anime dubs, and I hate that so much.
Well, I think when it comes to the attitude about voice acting for animation, like worldwide, is to make it really exaggerated, right? So I think a lot of dub actors are just like, you know, they'll have American accents because they're in America. So when they, you know, give themselves eccentricities and exaggerate themselves a lot, then the American accents are just going to be amplified, which I think, you know, needs to be put under control a bit.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I love the Monster dub so much, is that it's like really toned back, and I think it captured the tone of Monster better than the sub did, which is why I really liked the dub for Monster. That's one I like a lot. You know, even aside from the fact that people in Germany aren't going to be speaking Japanese.
To be honest, I don't think I've seen a lot of dubs though. Like, most of the dubs that I watch are because other people tell me to on the internet or on Rice.
I think only Naren tells you to watch dub.
Like, I watched the Yuri on Ice dub after I read reviews on Mal that were like, go watch the dub. Naren told me to watch the Baccano dub. Yeah. Naren also told me that, like, maybe I should watch the Kekai dub, and I didn't because I was like, nah. Because he said it wasn't as good, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, don't bother anymore.
I watched the Naruto dub as a kid because it aired on Cartoon Network.
The Naruto dub is one that I think is alright. He says believe it a lot.
Believe it! I
Said
will
it
even
become
translate?
Hokage.
Wait, what does it even translate to? Naruto doesn't say believe it in Japanese. Naruto doesn't say believe it in Japanese, so how did he get that?
I don't know what he says in
They get-
Japanese because I
I-
only watched the
they got
Shippuden
it. There's
sub,
a-
and he
there's a
doesn't say
video
believe
about
it
this.
anymore in Shippuden.
There's a video about this online called like, how does Naruto speak Japanese? and it's all about how he says datebayo like a lot instead of just da.
Yeah.
And apparently, supposedly, the translators thought that they wanted an equivalent phrase for Naruto to say in English,
so they put believe
so they
it?
made it believe it.
That's so bad, man.
I think it's funny. I like it.
But it doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense, but it doesn't make sense in the Japanese either, supposedly. So it's like
it's like a thing
you
say
know,
at
the whole
end.
point is that it's giving Naruto
It does
this,
make sense though.
this kind of over the top identity.
I mean, it's not an actual word like believe it. It's something that just comes after, like a habit. You know, no one says believe it randomly after.
Yeah, but nobody in Japan says datebayo instead of
But
just
people have their own like things they have. Like some people say like Zura at the end. You know.
in real
like,
life or in
yeah.
anime.
Characters
In real
like
life.
that girl in Love Live who's I forgot her name, but she like whenever there's a word that has like na in it, she goes nya like a cat, and I'm like
That's just that's just
That's an anime thing.
that's an anime thing. But like
Yeah, I hate it
dialects,
when
there's a
people
lot of
do that.
dialects that do that. You know, like a lot of Japanese dialect it's just the difference in the end.
But it's still like, you know, I still think believe it is like a reasonable, applicable, and
disagree.
funny way to just
I
translate
mean,
that.
believe it is fine because obviously considering his mission in life, which is to become Hokage, and no one believes that he can do it, so he just says believe it. Like that kind of makes sense to me. And then also the fact that it's like recurring, that he picks one thing and then he sticks with it, like it kind of becomes his thing,
No,
you know?
but it plays different roles in your sentence structure. Tebayo is just like a additional. It doesn't mean anything. It's not supposed to mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything on its own, but it adds something.
What does that?
I mean, I think believe it is fine. Like
The video, I
it's
can't remember
iconic.
the video I watched exactly, but supposedly the context with Debayo is like, the point is that it's like, look at this or see this instead of
Yeah,
just
something
it
like
is
that.
here. So
But that
you know,
yo is like
translatedly, it makes sense.
exclamatory. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Like it's it's like adding an exclamation mark to the end of your sentence, but saying that there's an exclamation mark there.
Instead of believe it, Naruto should just say exclamation.
Exclamation mark. Okay.
Oh no,
Another thing.
Sakura is getting with Sasuke, exclamation.
That's not how it works. But I mean, I still think believe it is just a weird translation, and it doesn't fit how people talk in real life at all.
But anime doesn't fit how people.
Anime
talk in real life,
isn't real
Roma.
life.
Yeah, anime
But
isn't
Japanese
real
is in
life.
real
To
life.
quote Avik, it's an
Japanese
idealized
is real
version
life.
of real life. We don't come to anime to watch social
Oh my
problems.
god. Dude, that's not how. But you can't just make up your own sentence structure in anime. You can't
What
just.
is
You
believe it?
absolutely
Believe
can.
it
Yeah,
in
it
English,
is.
or believe it is a proper sentence.
Yeah, it's not. Datebayo isn't a proper sentence. That's the whole thing. You can't just change a sentence.
Yeah, but there's
structure.
also like no way to change
Okay,
it into
it's about
English. So like,
it's
how,
about
what do you want him to
translating
do?
the
Like, put-
meaning, not translating the words.
What do you want him to put?
It
Like,
doesn't mean
I'm
the
gonna
same
become
thing at all. Oh my
Hokage!
God.
Exclamation mark.
Just don't put anything. It's not that hard.
But that's
Then it
worse.
loses its meaning.
How's that work?
It loses its importance. It loses the nuance.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't feel
it
how
doesn't
hard he's
become
gonna
a
become
nuance.
Hokage anymore.
Because it doesn't. That's not what it means in Japanese, though. That doesn't. That's not. It's not the same nuance. If you're changing it into something else, it's not the same.
But something is better than nothing, and something that's vaguely similar.
Yeah, maybe they should do something else instead of believe it. You know,
What should they put instead of believe it?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it that hard yet.
What's your gut reaction? Look at this. This is really
Exclamation
important. Exclamation mark.
Or even just I don't know, like putting a hey in the end or something. Even that's better.
That just sounds stupid.
Believe it sounds stupid, okay?
Believe it sounds like Naruto.
That's because you're used to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey,
if
isn't
it's
like
hey,
a
The fact that we could
characteristic
get
term.
used to it
Anyone
means
can
that it
say hey.
fits.
anyone can say believe it if they try hard enough.
Oh no, only Naruto can say believe it and make it work.
Why?
Because it's
Because
iconic.
I'm used to it. Because it's iconic.
This is basically like people who watched Naruto on Cartoon Network and people who didn't watch Naruto as kids because they lived in China and China doesn't have Cartoon Network.
China doesn't have Cartoon Network, yes. That's how it is.
So, okay, here's another thing. That, like, I don't know exactly, like... Okay, so I haven't seen the dubs for most of these. Wait, how am I going to phrase this? Okay, I'll phrase it by starting and saying that, like, a thing that you see quite commonly in anime is, like, when you have girls who are, like, supposed to be, oh, they're so different, or, like, oh, she's so cool. Like, usually they'll use, instead of watashi, which is the feminine pronoun for yourself, they'll use boku or ore, which are, like, masculine pronouns. So... when you translate that to English, everything just becomes I. And then usually, I feel like in dubs, they don't really... Well, because the way that... I don't know, generally, they don't carry that across into the dub. So, like, kind of... It's just a small thing, but I feel like Darling in the Franxx, Zero Two uses boku, but... I don't know. And Danmachi, Hestia, also uses boku, and I can't think of any other ones, but... I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
In Makia, there was a joke where one of the characters says Boku, and then he's young and is supposed to be growing out of saying it, so they make fun of him for it. And then the subtitles just say I in parentheses Boku, and then like the joke just doesn't flow.
What would you
But
rather
at the
it
same
be then?
but at the same time, I don't know.
Like,
I
think
wish
it's
they'd
fine.
just like
Yeah, it's
change
like,
the
how are you
joke.
supposed to fix that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish they just changed the joke to something else. That
I
meant
don't
that.
like when translator just change jokes.
But if the joke just makes no sense, would you rather have an unfunny joke or a funny
It
joke?
does make sense if you explain it.
If, yeah, well,
No,
if
it's
you
just-
explain
it's
the
not
joke, it
funny,
stops
but
being
has to be
funny.
explained.
Yeah,
That's why you put the parentheses instead of the thing, right?
That means you have to explain it.
but then it's like,
Well, if they explain it the next time people come across the same thing, they'll understand it now. Now they're educated and they can get the joke now instead of, just staying ignorant.
that is true. I actually did learn something about the use of Boku from Makia when I watched it like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I mean, but then also, like, they make fun of characters like that, but then also you get characters like Eiji in Banana Fish who still uses boku, and he's like, what, 19, 20 years old?
Well, anime characters doesn't reflect real life. What?
Whoa.
Oh, another thing I don't like is when they translate the names of Japanese foods. Like they change
Yeah.
in the subtitles I use for
I mean,
Tamako Market.
sometimes it makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't at
Yeah.
all, and it's just, like, stupid.
Like rice dumplings instead of, what was it again?
Oh, yeah, that's
Mochi?
just stupid. That, like, everyone knows what onigiri
Yeah,
is.
no.
Like, that's
Yeah.
just
But
being
like if
dumb
it's like
at that point.
hamburger, you don't want to.
They change.
Hamburger.
They're changing onigiri to jelly donut.
What? Did they?
They did that in the Pokemon 4 Kids.
Oh.
Because it was for a young
Well, I mean,
American
it's for
audience.
kids,
They
so-
can't
Wait.
know that onigiri exists. At the very
Did
least, they
just
should
think
call it like
that,
sushi or
Jenny
something.
donuts look like that?
No, they reanimated Brock holding a donut. They made it a donut instead of an onigiri.
What?
Well, it's probably some people
Yeah.
actually understand what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if they
It's like, I
just
don't
kept...
think kids would understand what an onigiri is if you grow up in, like, an American community.
They could just say,
That's how
just
you
say
learn.
seaweed rice
Yeah, or a rice
That's
ball.
how you educate
or
them.
rice ball. Rice ball makes sense. I feel like kids can understand what rice ball is.
This is why Americans they don't understand other people's cultures. SMH my head. It's all the cartoons. It's the fault of dubs and localization.
Then Zubin comes in and says, Japan is not an isolated society.
Then Avik comes in and he says that that's absolutely unacceptable to erase culture. God, we're so
I
lonely.
think you shouldn't. You should learn from other people's culture instead of just thinking about jelly donuts every day.
True
And
that.
whoever Amelia something Hart,
Amelia Earhart.
Amelia Earhart.
You know, so going back to the topic, like, I got off track for a bit, but I remember what I was gonna say. Like, going back to the topic of girls who don't use feminine pronouns, who use masculine pronouns instead, I feel like some people get really offended by that, and I don't really understand why, but... I
You mean
yeah,
they're offended by how it's translated or the original
No,
Japanese?
some people, like, if you were to, like, live in Japan, and, like, if I were to live in Japan and use a masculine pronoun, people would probably be kind of offended by that, and, like...
Uncomfortable?
No, actually, like, downright offended. Like, I've offended
What?
my actual
Personally
family members
offended?
before.
Wow. It's so funny. But they're family. I
No,
feel like
it's
they can
funny
get offended.
to me, but, like, it wasn't funny to them. But it's like, I don't know, like, at first, when anime started having girls who used boku and ore, it was, like, kind of shock factor. Like, from what I've read, one of the first female characters to do that was in Hunter x Hunter. And what am I saying?
Which character?
Yeah, so it's like there was a little bit of shock factor because it's like girls don't normally do that, and I don't know, like, what am I trying to say here? I have a point. I'm just trying to, like, put it together in my head.
I guess
right
that
now.
makes the characters better if they stand out, right? Or it gives them that extra detail that makes you understand them better.
Well, I mean, it kind of, like, firstly explains, like, an aspect of their personality, but also you kind of, like, understand the tone of their voice better, or, like, kind of sometimes what they're trying to say better, you know? Or, like, how they're trying to say something better. Okay,
so.
should I wrap it up?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for listening to Ricecast today. So this is the end of Ricecast. Goodbye. Oh, what have we learned today? Absolutely nothing.
We learned to get to the level of weeb where we don't need subtitles, so we can get the
That's right.
official, original
That's right.
artistic intent.
We've learned that women should not use boku lest they offend all of their family members. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Facts.
My TED Talk.
Facts.
My TED Talk.
Facts.
My TED Talk.
Facts.